Hello everybody! Welcome to the scruffy version of me and a combination update slash doing something together. If it's because I put it in the title, we are going to develop a roll of film. If it sounds like I'm kind of low energy, that's because I literally am. I did not get a lot of sleep last night, but also these are socks. I'm been kind of honestly been in a bit of a grumpy mood the last couple of days. I have not had as productive a time as I would have liked. I got back from California on that train trip. The bulk of the journey was to take the train. When I was in California, I did basically nothing. I just hung around with my brother and did, I shouldn't say I did nothing, because I did some prep work for the Sights and Sounds series, but part of why I'm in the mood that I'm in is because I'm in that place where I have about 6 projects started and none of them to any degree of completion. So with the Sights and Sounds, it's become clear that a lot of the B-roll that I had, the audio is just not good enough for that purpose. So I'm going to, at some point, spend some time down here with my audio recorder, which is out of frame, and take some new B-roll. I'll still use a lot of the old B-roll, but I want to get I want clean audio and some new clips that I've mainly of the RCA VCR in operation, the Sony, the old Beta VCR operation, Laserdisc players in operation, and all that stuff. I want cleaner audio, which I can get down here very easily. I just need to do it. So one of the things that I want to do in the not too distant future is talk about analog photography as far as developing film and printing prints. So what I actually need to do is test my chemicals to make sure that they still work. This fixer, I didn't realize it's been about 8 years since I've last developed a roll of film. And that makes sense because when I went to my Disney college program, I brought my digital camera, didn't bring any film photography, and since I started my YouTube channel, I kind of have put film photography to the side. So I made this up in November of 2013. This is not a problem. I can get more fixer easily. However, my preferred developer from my supplier, they are out of stock. I haven't checked every place on the planet, but this is Adenol, which is a different brand of Rodinol, which I believe is the original formulation. And the reason why I use this developer is because this is it's what you use for stand development. And the wonderful thing about stand development is you don't have to think about it. It takes more time, but you don't have to think about it. Now, because this bottle is so old, I can tell it's crystallized a bit in here. It doesn't have an expiration on it, but it has been opened. And it's undoubtedly at least 8 years old. So we're going to see if it works. I have a roll of film in this camera, which has pretty much nothing of importance on it. This is basically a test roll. This is actually a very interesting camera that I want to talk about at some point. I just found this at Goodwill. It's a Ricoh FF3AF Super, and it's a fixed focal length, no zoom, 35mm lens. It's got an autofocus system. This camera, I have 1 shot left on it. Will it think this is enough light? No, it wants the flash. I might actually not have 1 shot left on it, but anyway, this camera sound, the thing that I don't like about it is its autofocus mechanism. It kind of like tweaks the lens inward, and that sound it makes is just really strange. Plus, it winds the film as soon as you don't have the option to hold the shutter down, and then it winds the film when you release it. It winds the film immediately. So it sounds like, let me hold it up so the mic gets it. It sounds like this. That initial pew sound is kind of weird. But anyway, that was the last shot on this roll. Realistically, I could probably get another couple out of it, but let's rewind. Don't you miss this? I bet I have a few of you on Patreon who have never used a film camera before. Maybe not, but I do genuinely miss this about photography. I know it's inconvenient, but something about you only have so many pictures, you're not going to see them for days. This is a 36 exposure roll. Okay. Other fun thing, I have rolled my own film. I've been doing this, man, I don't know when I first bulk rolled film, but that's the other reason I'm doing this test. This is also very old film, but it's not the oldest I have. This is one of my favorite, I think it might be my favorite film. It's my preferred supplier is Freestyle Photo, and they sell their own brand called Arista, and arista.edu is well known to be Fomapan, Fomapan. I think it's a Czech film, if I remember right. And the reason why I like it is it has a very old school grain structure. It's not a modern film emulsion by any means. So this is Fomapan 100. It's fairly high detail, but it's also fairly grainy. And anyway, it's one of my favorites. But now let's show you how to develop a roll of film. It's actually really easy. You only need 2 or 3 or 4 chemicals. I'm down to the point of using only 3, and one of them isn't really a chemical. This stuff is stop bath. I don't use this because I use stand development. What this does, film developers are alkaline and this base is an acid. This is actually just really, really, really concentrated acetic acid. If you open the top on this, the whole room will smell like vinegar. If you were to smell this, it would hurt you. Like, I'm not kidding. And it's only orange because it has an indicator that once it becomes neutral, it turns purple, like black. Under a dark room light, it looks transparent, and then when it's used up, it goes black. But I don't need that for film development because I'm not using, for instance, D76. I could mix up this developer. It's expired, but it's powder, so I'm sure it's still fine. But the reason why I don't use D76 anymore, or really any of the traditional developers, there is a large chart here. And in fact, do I have a... This is Ilford Pan F50. This is an extremely high resolution film, but it's very slow. There's a chart inside the box that shows you all the different development times for different developers at different temperatures, and also push and pull processing. But with stand development, it's almost magic. It doesn't matter what film you've shot on, what speed the film is, if you want to push the film, so if you've underexposed the film but you want to process it to a faster speed, stand development is like magic, really, because it just works. Doesn't matter the film, doesn't matter speed, like I said, and you can also mix them. So I'm using a development tank right now, which is just for one roll of film, but you can also mix 2 different films in the same tank and use this process, and it will work. If the developer works, which we don't know yet. But I also have to test the fixer, but that is very easy to do. So I got off track. So you need developer and fixer. Those are really the only 2 things you need, especially if you're doing stand development. And I will explain what they do as we go along. And then the last chemical is not really a chemical. This is PhotoFlow, which is basically jet dry, rinse aid for your dishwasher. It's just a surfactant, and it just reduces the surface tension of the water so that on your final, like the very last thing you'll do is you'll squirt a little bit of this in the tank, get the film wet, and then when you dry it, all the water will just sheet off the film and you won't get water spots. This is technically optional, but with the hard water I have here, no, it's not. So let me start with getting the film out of this. Because this is bulk rolled, I can actually just pop the ends of this off. I didn't explain that. I have a little thing. You can buy film in 100-foot 100-foot rolls, which is enough to fill like I think 30, 36 exposure canisters. I don't remember. It's a good number. And the way you load these is they just come apart. But I'm not going to do that because that's more finicky. I can show you that bulk loader too. I have to find it. I think I know where it is. Again, this has been a process of I've had to find where my stuff has ended up in all sorts of different places. It's been a long time. It's kind of a journey to get back into this groove, and that's part of why I'm bringing you along with me, because we got to do this. But this is one of my very favorite tools. This is a film leader retrieval tool, and it's able to pull the film leader back out of the cartridge so you can load it onto the development reel, this guy, with much greater ease. Some people wouldn't do this because, especially that have bulk rolled, you can get dust in the little felt light trap here, which can scratch the emulsion. And the thing is, I've wound it on, unwound it, wound it back, so it's already gone through 3 times, and I'm going to have it go through a 4th time. But my philosophy regarding that is, it's already gone through 3 times. A 4th time is probably not going to kill anything. But this is just a little magic doohickey thing. It's got these fingers, and if I remember this correctly, all you do is you push it into the light seal. It's easier said than done. Okay, then we slide the first one in. And now you turn this, and you have to listen carefully for a click. I think that was it. You push the second one in and pull it out. And it didn't work. So that was probably not the click. I was hoping that would work the first time. That would have been great. That was a very loud click. Push this in, pull it out. Don't make a fool out of me. Oh, I'm probably... There are instructions on here, but they're a little confusing. Come now. I feel like I almost had it. I used to be able to do this with a 100% success rate. As you can tell, I've lost my touch. That really felt like it grabbed something. Also, I'm probably fogging the film a little bit because I have such bright light on me. Oh well. One of you is familiar with how to do this and you're like, you're doing it wrong. Am I supposed to turn? No, because that slip it off the thing. There we go. Got it. Only took however many tries that was. Okay. And also I should say, because I cut this, it's not the shape of your normal film leader. But here's the first thing I got to test. Does my fixer work? But we can test this in light, because I'm going to move the camera so you can see, and then I will explain what the fixer actually does. Okay, so to test my fixer, a hair in there, of course, I'm going to just take the very end of the leader. Sorry, I can't see what you can see. And now I'm going to pour some fixer into this bowl. And if this fixer is good, after a relatively short period of time, the film should become transparent. So, as I'm sure you are aware, film, after it has been developed, is not opaque like it is here. And it's the job of the fixer to make it transparent. Oh, I'm sorry. I should sit down so you can hear me in the mic better. So what's going on when you develop black and white film? Color film is wildly more complex, but black and white film, The film, when it has not been exposed to light, it has silver halide particle or ions in the or silver. God, the chemistry is not my strong suit. I don't remember offhand if it's ions before or after exposure to photons, but in any case, there are bits of silver halide in the film's emulsion. When it gets exposed to light, the photons make it I believe the photons ionize those molecules, and it's the job of the developer to turn those ionized particles into metallic silver. Don't worry, I'm going to do the proper research to remember all this technical stuff before I were to make a video. But the developer is turning those the spots on the film that were exposed to light into granules of metallic silver. That's the grain of the film. It's the job of the fixer then to get rid of all the parts of the film that were not turned to silver. So right now, I think it's already gone transparent. Yeah, you can see in the middle, it's only where it's been touching the bowl. So right now, none of the film was developed. Even though it's been exposed to light, it didn't have any time in the developer, so the image didn't show up. So the fixer is just taking all of that. It's basically getting rid of all of everything that's on the film because there is no image that was developed. But I can clearly tell that this works fine because it's going transparent. So great, we can actually develop this. Now the question is, does my film developer still work? That's what we're going to find out. Okay, so now comes the slightly terrifying but kind of fun part of getting the film onto the development reel. So this is a development tank. It is a light-proof tank, but it allows water or liquids in and out of it. We need to get the film, which I put over here, onto this reel and into this tank in the dark. Now, if you want to, you can get a very well light-controlled room, or you can use a changing bag. So this is a bag with a couple of holes for your arms, and there is a double zipper to make a light-proof seal. So there's actually two zippers on this side. So what I'm going to do, I need to put in the tank. And I will eventually be putting this in there, but I also need to put in scissors. And here's what I do to save myself some trouble. I actually start this outside, so I don't want to pull too much film out of here. But these plastic film reels are the best. They are self-loading. The only thing that I always make sure to do is make sure that these, there's a couple of ball bearings here that are captive. I want to make sure they can both move, or else this can get a little bit sticky. But I'm literally just gonna, I'll pull a little bit more out. On my F1 or any of my SLRs where you have to pull so much film out, this is not scary. It's a little scary on my point and shoot because I don't know where the first image actually is. But I am just sliding this onto here. Okay, that's on. Put it in the changing bag. I've got my scissors, I've got the tank. Everything should be good to go. So now we just zip up this one. Zip up the other one and carefully spin this around. Now we do the very silly thing of sticking our arms in here, and you want to pull that way up your arms so you don't get any light leakage. This is why some people very much don't like using changing bags, because it is, you know, weird, but it works. So now I'm just feeling around for where everything is. So there's my roll of film, there's my tank, there are my scissors. So with faith that this will not let any light into the bag, I'm now going to move the film reel back and forth. You just do a sort of twisting action and it pulls the film onto the reel. It's really great. And you just keep doing this until it stops. Okay, I'm at the end. I'm going to grab my scissors and cut the film off of the cartridge. This is always a little bit fun to do. Completely missed where the blade was. Okay, that's gone, so I'll just twist it the rest of the way. There's the tank. That's the bottom. It's in the tank. And the lid is on the tank. Now I'm just feeling to make sure that the seal, it's not cross-threaded. And now we should have, where's the other zipper? Oh, further in. The film is in that tank. Oh. Oh, that wasn't on there. So here's the film that I just cut. So just that much was left on there. And just so you can see now, if I just squeeze this, the ends pop right off. So I could have just done this inside the bag, but the problem is then you get, it just unspools all together inside the, it is not tidy at all. So I'd much rather just pull it straight out from this. And then this is the center of it. This is how you would actually load it with film from the bulk loader. Is you just tape it onto here and then slide it through here. Except that's backwards. And snap that together. But I don't want to, I'm not going to put it together because I want to know that this is empty. I'll leave the label on there because I still have that in my bulk film loader. But as of now, we are ready to develop this film. So what I'm going to do is, you want to rinse it first. It's usually best to do that. This fella is a little agitator. You can turn the spool inside of here. And then I will measure out the water and the developer. We'll get that stuff going. So I'm just going to step into the other room where there's a sink. Okay, now I'm letting it sit by the sink for a few minutes while I get this measured out. Originally, this syringe was not for developer, but too bad. I got to order more supplies. So the other reason why stand development is great is you use so little of this. I'm going to be using literally 3.5 milliliters is normally what I use. Because I suspect that this is a little less effective, I'm going to go to 4. We'll see if that's a mistake or not. And again, it's a little crusty. There's some stuff floating around in there, but the color seems correct from what I remember. So we'll just see. So I'm going to get 4 milliliters. Oh. I remember it being this kind of a brown color. That is too many. By the way, normally most photo development chemicals are really not actually that dangerous, so that's why I'm not wearing eye goggles. I suppose I probably should, but really not that concerned, quite frankly. So here's 4 milliliters. That's all the developer we're going to use. literally just that much. I'll be right back. Okay, so now the developer is mixed with water to make 300 milliliters of solution, which is what we need for this tank. Now we just pour it in. It's not just pour it in, there's more to do. Okay, so our film is now developing. I'm going to use the agitator to get this all nice and stirred around, just for a little bit. And then this is very important. You want to hit this on the table. You're dislodging any bubbles. So what you can do, you can put this cap on, you can actually invert it a bunch of times. Not going to bother doing that, to be honest. But now I'm going to start a timer for a half hour. Then I'm going to agitate it a little more. Start another timer for a half hour at that point. And then we will rinse it and fix it. So now there's a lot of waiting. I'm going to turn off the camera. I think. Or maybe we'll keep talking. Anyway, timer's going. So yeah, so in case I was completely rambly, which I think I was. Oh, also the other thing I can do. One thing you want to do with Adenol or Rodenol is you don't want oxygen staying in the tank or in the bottle. So some people will put marbles in there. I just squeeze the bottle. I mean, at some point I'll need to do that, but I'll just squeeze the bottle. But this might also not be any good anymore. We'll see. That's why I'm doing this roll that has, as far as I know, really nothing that I care about on it. But anyway, so again, the silver halide on the film, in the film emulsion, this converts particles that were hit with light into metallic silver. I don't know the chemistry involved in that. I'm frankly just not very good at chemistry in general. Stand development is extremely slow. That's, I mean, you saw how dilute this was. Normally with D76, so this stuff you would mix to make 1 liter of developer. And then, just to give an example, let's just say a 100 speed film. It's really telling you only like Kodak films, of course, but full strength, you only develop for somewhere between 5 and some really fast films, like they have 3200 speed film, 15 minutes, but for the most part, somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes is all that you develop with this. And that's why you need that stop bath, because you don't want to overdevelop unless you're intentionally push processing. But this stuff you mix with 1 liter of water, and how much is this? This is 109 grams. So it's not anywhere near as dilute as literally 1 to 100 roughly of that to water. But the thing is, assuming that chemical is good, it just always works. And I don't remember where I first read about it. Well, here, story time. I got into analog photography, specifically black and white darkroom photography, by myself before I took any photography classes. So in high school, in my senior year, I was able to take photography. I had enough time to do it. And I was a bit of an odd student because I knew all of the technical stuff. I was taking it because I wanted to learn take a class with composition. But as far as how to develop film, how to use a darkroom and all that, I had that down because I had done it at home. And all this equipment I found on Craigslist. You can't see it, it's on top of the set, but there's a Bessler Printmaker 35 and larger. We'll be talking about that later, but for that I'm going to need to get new developer. Yeah, because D76 is not for paper. So I'll need to get new developer when we get to that part. And I don't think Rodenol is either. But so I found all this very stuff on Craigslist, and somewhere when I was doing research, I found out about stand development, and it's S-T-A-N-D, stand, if it sounds like I'm saying stand development. I do stand development. But I should rinse this, right? Yeah, I'm going to rinse this. Hang on a second. So once I learned about stand development and Rodinal, that was like, to me, well, obviously this is the best way to develop film because it's extremely consistent. It gets you a lot of detail out of the film. It gets pretty much, because you can push process with stand development, even on the same roll. If you take a picture where realistically you didn't have enough light, it will fix that for you. You'll get, that frame will actually develop as normal. So if this is 100 speed film, if I underexposed it 2 stops, it's going to push it up to 400 speed film. It's almost like magic. The biggest downside is you lose contrast because you're stretching the dynamic range of the film so much by doing this. But you can use contrast filters when printing to get that back. And again, all this fun stuff I want to talk about, especially contrast filters. I need to buy a set because I do not have one of my own. But this here is photographic paper, like real photographic paper, not what you buy for your printer. And this is basically film. It just happens to have a paper backing. So what you do, and I'm not going to show this right now, but you load your film after it's developed into the enlarger, and you project. The enlarger is basically it's basically a slide projector. It's just smaller, and you project that image onto the paper. So you get a negative of a negative. Then you develop the paper, and you get a positive print. This is what you see in movies in the darkroom, and that's part of the reason why I want to do these videos is, for one, this technology is obviously not, well, no, it is obviously obsolete. People are doing it now for artistic and hobbyist reasons. But the popular culture, what you see in film and most representations, this part they generally don't show you of developing the film. It's usually just making prints. And even then, someone mentioned one specific thing where they actually showed the enlarger, but for the most part, they'll show in a dimly lit red room the image appearing on a paper, but that's about all you ever see. But I want to show that in real, actually show that process with my particular style, however you want to call it. One of the very first things that you learn, which is kind of a mind blow if you didn't know it, is that with those photographic papers, modern photographic papers, the darkroom, the safe light is not red, it's yellow. And in fact, way back when, it's not here yet, it's still at my parents' home. I need to get it back from them because that's where I set up this darkroom, and like 8 years ago, however long it was. When I did the series on high pressure sodium lighting, I said at some point we're going to talk about a low pressure sodium light will be featured. That's my safe light. I have a Thomas Duplex Super Safe Light, I believe. That's correct. And it's widely considered like the best safe light if you can get it, or at least it was at the time. Now with LEDs, I'm not sure, because I think amber LEDs are about the same wavelength. So I haven't looked it up in a while, but I have a low pressure sodium safe light, which allows you quite a lot of light for printing. Like, it's not even hard to see under this safe light at all. It will fog paper over a long period of time, but you keep your paper in the box and only pull it out when you're actually making a print. You have something like 10-20 minutes of working time before you have any risk of fogging. So that's another thing to show, because what variable contrast paper does, there are color filters, which I will get to show you, that you put in between the enlarger and your film, or in the paper. And what they do is they shift, my explanation could be incorrect, but my understanding is in these variable contrast papers, there are 2 different grains, if you will, that are more sensitive to one wavelength than the other. And one is more contrasty than the other as well. So these filters can shift the film or shift the image either towards one or the other, so you can increase or decrease the contrast. So that's another reason why stand development is, to me, just perfect, because you do not think about it. It takes more time, but it uses so little developer. This bottle was something like $12 maybe, and it will do, this is 300 mils, right? No, 500 mils. So this will do more than 100 rolls of film. And so it's very, very cheap. And the fixer, by the way, I'm going to dump this. You don't reuse this developer, but the fixer you do reuse. That's part of why I'm testing it, to see how long. If I fix the film for 10 minutes, I know that'll be plenty. But the fixer, when I'm done, I'm going to pour it back into here. I will need to get a funnel to do that. This tank, by the way, you just tip it over and everything comes out. But yeah, so this is very rambly, but all these always are. But I hope this is enjoyable, because I can't imagine too many of you know this. Maybe you do, but I feel like this is really niche stuff. I also have up here, this is my photography bag. One thing that I did towards the end of when I was into analog photography, I was going on eBay and buying strange Chinese films that some importers would get and sell, although I think I got some directly from China. So this is, I think, Super Lucky 200 film. It's color film, C41 process. Back when I could still take film to like Costco, or I don't know if any stores do in-store development anymore, but CVS or Walgreens did it some years ago, but I don't know, they probably don't these days. But back when you could still do that, I'd take this and I'd have to tell them it's C41, because there's no English on the film canister itself. This is also very expired. 2013 is the date. It's probably still okay film. It's not like when it passes its expiration date, it stops working. But this is 120 film. This is black and white. And I don't remember what it's called. I just know Shanghai GP3. It's in English. It's the only thing that I know about it. I only shot a couple of rolls of that. It's a terrible, terrible film. The emulsion is very fragile. The film backing is also really, really thin. But it was very cheap for 120 film. This is medium format. And like this camera here, this takes that film. So show that too at some point. But another thing that I'm going to do in preparation for this video, my Freestyle Photo, that supplier that I mentioned, they sell C41 development kits, and I would love to get one to see how hard it is to do that myself. My previous understanding with C41 was that everything needs to be at a very precisely controlled temperature. And what most people will do is they'll get a tub and put an aquarium heater inside the water, or they'll fill it with water, put an aquarium heater in there, and then put all their chemicals in this warm water, and the heater will regulate the temperature. But I think these kits actually allow you to develop at room temperatures. There might be some costs and drawbacks to that, but they're reasonably inexpensive. I want to say the smallest kit is something like $30 and we'll do 10 rolls of film, something like that. And it's the same thing. You reuse the chemicals, so you don't have to do it all in one go. But that would be fun. I'd like to test if this film still works. But honestly, I have to say I'm far more interested in black and white photography and printing in a darkroom than I am color analog photography. I don't really know why. It's just... Part of why I got these cheap films was because they are cheap and weird, kind of like lomography type thing. But it's just, I haven't gotten into that groove of analog color photography. It's never super registered with me, but maybe I can explore some more and see what we can do. But this video is all about, do my chemicals even work for black and white photography? And now I will actually stop the camera because we have to wait 45 more minutes until we will even begin to know if this worked. Okay, so at this point we have just about 10 minutes left to the development, but I dug out because I had some in my bin of stuff. These are photographic prints. So these are what they look like after you have put after you've projected the image from the film onto this paper and then done the same exact thing we're doing now, except you do it under a safe light so you can see what you're doing. And then you put it in a tray full of chemicals and watch the image appear, which is always very fun. I need to do a lot more setup to actually show that, but I'll do it right here. I can hang the safe light right above the table, pretty much just to the side of the lights above me. And we will put the tray and the enlarger and all this stuff right here. Be really cool. I'm looking forward to that. But just another print here. This shows what happens when you do not expose long enough. And actually, this is why I need contrast filters, because there is there's no way to get enough of the detail out of the film without a contrast filter, because this is it's crushing the blacks here in the trees, but if I expose too lightly, then you don't get any of the detail in the field. It's, basic photography stuff, but it's funny now that I'm looking at these years later and seeing what I need to redo from before. There's some geese on a river. And then also, these are contact sheets. If you've ever heard the phrase contact sheet, what that comes from is you are literally taking a sheet with your film in it, so a film holder like this, and you put it on top of a piece of photographic paper, put a piece of glass over it, and expose it to light. Then when you develop the paper, you get a contact sheet which has the positives of all the actual frames of film. So this is one of the first ways you can judge, what images might be worthy of printing. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was one of the main reasons why I wanted to get printing equipment. If you remember way back from the digital ice video, you can't use digital ice with black and white film because the silver halide blocks infrared and it thinks the image is itself a defect. And so to get all the detail out of film on a film scanner, it's just really hard. And so what's actually much better to do is to print it on large paper like this. There are focusing aids, which you'll see when we get to that video, so you can print it with absolutely the highest resolution you can possibly get, and then scan this after it's been developed to do whatever you might want to do in the computer with that frame. It's also just fun to print directly onto the paper, but that's just one example of what you can do. And it's also easier, it's so much, you tend to get dust in whenever you do scanning of negatives. It would be better, I think, if I had a true film scanner, but with a I always want to say flatbed scanner. A flatbed scanner is hard to control for dust. So anyway, that's just some of that stuff here to show you. And so now what the next step is for developing the film, when the timer runs out, I'm just going to dump this down the sink, and then we are going to rinse this a few times with water. If we were using D76 or a stronger developer that goes faster and you can reuse, I'd pour it back into the container and use the stop bath to actually stop the development instantly. But because we've done stand development, there's no need to use stop bath, and the fixer itself is slightly acidic and will do that anyway. So just rinsing it. Then I will put in the fixer, and that process is more tedious because you want to keep agitating it. I'll do that for about 10 minutes, and then we can open this up and we can see, are there any images on the film? I'm not going to take the reel apart yet because we want to rinse it for at least 5 minutes or so. Then we'll do a little bit of the photo flow and hang it up to dry. And then what I will do, I have tons of, these are different film holders. Oh no, these are for 120 film. Well, there you go. These are not the right one. I got to find where my 35 millimeter ones are. I think I know where they are, but put them in there. And then what we will do, I'll actually scan them digitally at first, which is what I've tended to do when I've done it. Is I scan the negatives at pretty high resolution as soon as I have developed them, and then I can, so in that way I don't really need to do a contact sheet, and I don't think I usually do these days. But yeah, so the other fun thing about doing film photography is I don't remember what pictures are on this roll. Like, I know that none of them are very important, but it's always fun with the surprise of you don't know what pictures are going to turn out, what you actually took. You don't get that instant review of digital photography, which is both bad, but also it's a lot of fun. This I really do miss that about, I remember when I was a kid, I had, my parents got me a cheap little point and shoot camera when I was maybe 10, probably less than that even. And I remember taking photos, and you wouldn't get to see what photos you took until you could get the film to the store. And if you were willing to spend the extra for 1 hour photo, then you can get those photos back quickly. But usually I remember going to Jewel, Chicagoland memories, going to Jewel, dropping it off, picking them up the next day. So kind of miss that. And it's fun to be able to do that yourself with all these, with the actual black and white process. It's super easy. If you're interested in doing this, you can get into developing film for like $50 or less. If you don't have a scanner or anything else, sure, that's going to be more expensive. But certainly, once this is available, you can get the chemicals are going to cost you like $30. You can get a development tank used somewhere. I would very much recommend the plastic ones over stainless steel, just because the way you load the film, that was actually one of the things I asked my photography teacher in high school, I said, can I please bring in my development tank? Because they had stainless steel tanks, which are much harder to load. And I felt kind of bad because, all of my reels of film always came out with every single image intact. But the students, especially the first time, they'd have film touching itself inside the stainless steel canisters, so it didn't develop, or the fixer didn't get on that part of the film. So they'd get a strip with sections of it that they weren't even transparent. It wasn't like nothing developed. They're just blotches all over the film. And I brought in one of these, and it just always worked. And it was also, just do that thing. What I'm doing is a motion like this inside the bag, and it just loads itself onto the reel. It's much, much better than the stainless steel tanks. But so we're almost about out of time. I'm going to walk over there with my tank, get ready to rinse it, and then I'll come back and we'll do the fixer. Don't need the measuring cup anymore, because the fixer I'm just going to pour in until I see it coming out the top. But we'll be back in a second. Okay, so assuming my developer is okay, the images are now on the film. They exist as silver halide negatives, or metallic silver negative images. But we can't open this to light yet because, for one thing, it will ruin the film still, but also the fixer has not taken care of all of the parts that were not exposed to light. So that is what we're doing now. So the film is still opaque looking right now. If we took it out, you couldn't see through it. It would still have that, it would still have this appearance. It would look kind of gray and opaque. So that's what we need the fixer for. So the fixer, probably, given how quickly it worked on the sample we did, I only need to do this for 5 minutes, but I'm going to do it for 10 to be thorough. Okay, and now for the fixer, I'm going to be agitating it for about 10 seconds and then letting it sit for the remainder of the minute, and do that every minute. And then we will be able to open it. But I will be pouring the fixer back into this bottle. Might as well prep that. Then you'll actually see what it looks like when the chemicals are coming out of here. I wish I had a bigger funnel, but the bigger one I have is it's covered in fact, I think I used it for lava lamps because it's got some gross wax on it, so it got put in the wrong bin at some point. Do you like my skull and crossbones? I didn't use Mr. Yuck. Sorry. I haven't smelled these chemicals in quite a while. It's not quite odorless. There is a very, very faint smell of vinegar to it, but it's not... There's something a little bit different to it. I don't know how to explain it quite. It actually, I almost tasted a little bit. I remember this from... You do get a taste in your mouth when you're around the fixer. So that's fun. But I was actually thinking when I was talking about wearing safety goggles, I'm pretty confident we didn't even wear them in high school. We had eye wash stations in the dark room, and we had a sink in the classroom part exposed to light that had eye wash stations, and then there was one in the actual dark room. But yeah, I don't think we even wore safety goggles in high school, which is pretty wild when you think about it. But drives home the point that these chemicals they're really not that terrible. This contains ammonium thiosulfate, sodium metabisulfate, sodium gluconate, sodium hydroxide. So this is alkaline too? Anyway, it's all relatively mild stuff. I thought this was acidic. In any case, it doesn't matter because the stand development is so dilute. If you just rinsing it with water is going to instantly stop it. And in fact, if I remember right, you don't really ever need stop bath. If you have the ability to rinse with water, stop bath is really just kind of a little over the top. I could be wrong though. It's been so long since I did the research, and the fact that I'm doing this from memory is scaring me to thinking that I'm doing something wrong. I don't think so, though. Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off because this is just me staring at you for 6 more minutes. Okay, I've relocated you to my nasty utility sink. I have about 3 minutes left on the fixer. And let me see, I've put that over there so you can see the process of pouring it back in. So you can see the top of the tank. The center hole has the agitator in there, and then the holes around here, they let water out. So this lid has a light trap, and everything has to make 2 90-degree turns, and it's all black plastic, so light does not actually get inside there, but liquids can pass in and out freely. And there are different styles, like there's also drum processors. I don't know the specifics of that, but these hand tanks are, the tried and true hobbyist thing. If you were well, of course, back in the day with C41 process, they had machines that you just put the film cartridge in and it would do everything for you. But if you were like an independent photography shop nowadays, you wouldn't use tanks like these unless you had like a one-off. I'm sure they have processing machines for anything larger than, an individual doing this for fun. And realistically, probably I could stop with the fixer, but the thing with the fixer is you can't overdo it. I suppose if you left it in there for an hour, it might do some damage to the film, but fixer is just dissolving the parts of the film that weren't developed. It's basically all it's doing. So it's not going to take away the silver particles, it's only going to take away the silver halides that are still there. And that's why, again, when we did the fixer without developing it, it just goes transparent because none of the silver halide particles got converted to metallic silver by the developer. It's fairly basic chemistry, it's just I don't remember these specific reactions. I don't even really know what's in film developer. And there's all sorts of different kinds, so it's not like they're all the same chemical. And that's part of what makes this process fun, is that you can vary the chemicals, experiment with that, and get finer grain or thicker grain. What I'm doing now is pretty much on the fine grain side. If I really wanted a grainy film, I would not do it this way. But we are now officially fixed, so I'm going to pour this back into the bottle and hopefully spill minimally. That went surprisingly well. Okay, now I'm going to start, well, first I'll close that up. Then we can start rinsing, and after I've rinsed it a couple times, I'll open it up and see if we can see any signs of an image. I really hope so. You see water just goes in the top. All right, let's take a look. What do we got? Hopefully the film is transparent, which it is, and I can see the edge of a frame, so it's really hard to see right now. Let me see if I can get my flashlight from my phone. Let's see if you can capture any of that. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. Oh, you can see an edge right there. See the edge of the frame? So now I'm going to let it rinse. What I've done in the past is just kind of do that. There's probably more effective ways to rinse because I don't know how much. What I wish is I had a tube to force water up to the bottom, but I don't, so just gonna let it sit under this for about 5 minutes. We'll do the photo flow, and then we can take the reel apart. So I'm going to move the camera back to the table in just a minute, but this is 2 milliliters of photo flow. You only need 1 to 200 of this stuff. It's very concentrated, soapy stuff. So what I'm going to do is, after I'm done rinsing this, I'm going to empty the water out and add this to the tank, fill it back up with water, and just swirl it around for a while, and then we'll be able to separate the film. Ooh, and here we are. So it's dripping because I put it in the photo flow. You don't want to rinse it after that point. And then we just twist these apart. They should snap. They're kind of hard. Oh, I'm twisting the wrong way, I think. There we go. And there we are. Images on film. I'm happy to see that. Very happy to see that. So I'm going to hang these up. There you go. I don't know where that is, but it's somewhere along my train trip from California to here. The images look very sharp from what I can see, and everything developed quite well. So even though that developer is very old, looks like everything came through. That camera is completely automatic everything, so there's no, there's no manual exposure. You're looking, is that frame? Yeah, this is the darkest looking frame. And you can see that there's really nothing with stand development that comes out black. And so the thing is, you gotta remember, black is light. This is a negative. So you always get really good details in the highlights. If there are any pictures, I know you can't see what I'm seeing, but yeah, like clouds look really good. Everything came out really well. Cool. So, there you have it. That's how you develop black and white film. It's pretty simple, actually. It's very easy. I love stand development. It's like impossible to screw up, even using very old, and I can tell a little bit broken chemicals. It shouldn't be crunchy. But yeah, I'm very, very happy that came out. So I hope you enjoyed this little exploratory, rambly explanation of this process. as I suspected, the top is the end, right? Yeah. So realistically, I could have squeezed out 2 more frames on that roll, and in the beginning, this is good to know. It's been so long since I used this camera. It shot forward 2 full frames. So I could have pulled way more out of the cartridge without worrying about exposing it to light when I was loading this. Oh, speaking of, last thing I'm going to do is rinse this off so that the photo flow residue doesn't stay behind. But yeah, that's all there is to it. It's pretty straightforward. So if this is something that you wanted to do, it doesn't take a lot to get going. You basically just need a development tank, either a changing bag or a completely dark room, because the thing about film, it's sensitive to all colors of light. So if I did this under a safe light, the film would be fogged. But it's pretty easy. I find this to be really fun, and I'll have to, I'm going to let these dry for, I don't remember how long I used to wait, at least an hour. And then I got to find print files for them to put them in, and then I'll scan them and see what they look like. Maybe I'll put some up on the video before I publish this. I'll put some actual scans on the video. But thanks for watching. I'm sorry September's not looking to be what I wanted it to be. So I'm thinking I'm going to spend most of this month doing, I want to get the sights and sounds thing rolling. I did take some vloggy type stuff on the train trip, so I want to put that together for everybody on Connextras. But and I look less scruffy in that. So thank you also for bearing with me. I don't usually shave unless I'm filming the video or I need to be somewhere that should look good. And that's been a long time since, that was a thing. So now I pretty much I shave very infrequently. But I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to offload all this footage and catch ya. Oh man, I'm so bad at ending these. I forgot to show you. This is the bulk film loader. So what's in here, you can buy 35mm film in, I believe they're 100-foot spools. Why do you feel loose? I hope I didn't just ruin all that. Probably not. That's the actual thing too. Wait, is this empty? I tore off the label. It's empty. I didn't realize that I didn't have any film in here. Well, that's another thing to buy then. Wow, let me show you then. I could be about to ruin some film, but there's none sticking out, so I don't think so. Nope. So you buy this big spool of film and you stick it in here, slip it through this felt light trap. You do this in a changing bag, of course. And slap that back on. I had no idea that I'd used up the last of my Fomapan. So then what you do is there's a little bit of film that sticks out of here, and then you would tape it to this spool thingy. I don't remember which way it's supposed to go. It has to go like that. So you tape it to this guy, and then you would slip the cartridge over it, so you'd slip it through its light trap, right? All the while it's taped to this. Put the end on, shut this door, right? Then there's a light trap again. And you stick on the crank, and it has a chart for how many turns to turn this, for how many exposures you want on the roll. So for 36 exposures, turn that 30 times. There you go. If you only want 24 exposures, it's 24 turns. Happens to line up that way. But I always do 36 because it's, especially when you're like, if you do smaller rolls, you have more wasted with the end of every roll. But that's amazing. See, this is how long it's been. I have rolls of, like in here. Actually, this is super old film. I took some tests. That's the first one I ever ran through the bulk loader. I guess I'll just show you those because that's all I got. So this is film that I rolled into this using this guy, and that's how that works. So it does save quite a lot of money because you can get even like high-end films like Ilford. You can get 100 foot rolls for like $75, and that does, how long is that? Maybe 5 feet at the most. So you're going to get at least 20 some rolls out of that. And so you're talking $3 per roll or less, and it's a lot cheaper than buying them individually. So that's just a fun little thing I can show you. But yeah, apparently I used up all my Fomapan. I gotta put an order together and get all this figured out. It has been too long.